Welcome to Straight Talk and Retirement, your no-hype source for financial advice in making informed choices about your retirement plan. Get on the phone to talk today at 314-931-5877 or text your question to 84126.
The opinions voiced in this show are for general information only and are not intended to provide specific advice or recommendations for any individual. To determine which investments may be appropriate for you, consult with your attorney, accountant, and financial advisor or tax advisor prior to investing. Securities offered through LPL Financial, member FINRA SIPC. Investment advice offered through Private Advisor Group, a registered investment advisor. Private Advisor Group and JBL Financial Services, Inc. are separate entities from LPL Financial.
Now, here are your retirement coaches, Jeff and Aaron Lapidus.
Well, hello, St. Louis, and welcome to Straight Talk on Retirement. You're live and local, St. Louis's favorite financial call-in show. I'm Jeff Lapidus, president of JBL Financial Services. Our offices are located in beautiful downtown Olivet, Missouri. I'm a 40-plus year veteran of the financial services area, a fee-based financial planner and wealth manager. And I'm joined this week and every single week by my crew, my favorite oldest prodigal daughter, Aaron Lapidus, who also is a fee-based financial planner and wealth manager, and Rob Markham, our life insurance and fixed annuity sales specialist. Good morning, gang.
Good morning.
Good morning. We help our clients make smart choices about their money. The way we do that is by designing a game plan, a written step-by-step strategy, a real game plan that has several goals in mind.
First is to preserve, protect, and prudently grow the assets our clients have taken their entire lifetimes to accumulate. Second is to deliver a reliable stream of income, one that they can count on, so they can do all the things they'd like to do during retirement.
And third is cost-effectively addressing their health care needs, like helping individuals enroll in Medicare and choosing the right plan to couple with their Medicare coverage.
And then when they're done enjoying their assets during their lifetime, we show them how to pass them on to the people they love, whether it's their spouses or children, grandchildren, churches or charities, whoever it might be, with Uncle Sam or the tax courts taking a big bite out of their money. And as their wealth managers, Aaron and I watch their money every single day to make sure they're staying on track. And that's why they call us the Retirement Coaches. Well, folks, again, good morning. Thanks so much for tuning into the show. We do want to remind everybody that all of our clients are folks like you. They're our listeners. They're 55 and older. They would like to retire, or they're already retired. As Aaron mentioned, our goal is to create a game plan for them with the goals, of course, of having a fun and financially secure and hopefully worry-free retirement. And before we get into our programming today, we want to remind you we are live and local. Our phone lines are open. We'd love to hear from you. 314-931-5877 or 84126 on the KTRS text line. And, Babe, I know that there are lots of ways that folks can keep in touch with us also during the week.
That's right. Just log onto our website, jblfinancial.com. In the upper right-hand corner, you can click on the Contact Us section and send us an email with a question, a request for a coaching session, financial, Medicare, or both. On the lower left-hand side of the screen, you can click on the pop-up box that appears that says sign up for our monthly newsletter. We call it the Coach's Corner, and we send it out every single month by email.
And Aaron and her staff do keep the last 6 to 8 months of those archived for your printing, viewing, or downloading convenience. The other fun thing on our website is our Contact Us section, which folks can use to either ask questions, many of which show up on the show, or arrange a coaching session for either Medicare planning or their retirement game plans. Lots of fun. Well, great. Again, while we're waiting for your calls at 314-931-5877 or 84126 from the text line, we got lots of fun things to talk about this morning, right?
As always.
Well, that's great. I was going to say, getting into our programming today, I thought that it might be nice to start and talk a little bit about the markets. Again, Aaron and I are not financial prognosticators, but we get paid to watch people's money. And, honey, I know we've been looking at, especially the movement of the S&P 500, which we feel is like one of the primary benchmarks for performance in the broad market. And we've really been seeing a trend over the last year, haven't we?
Well, I think it's really developed over the last several months, which is we've started to trade within a range, meaning that we're not seeing, any breakouts above about 4,000 on the S&P, and we haven't seen any breakdowns below about 3,850.
Yeah, and so this, at least to us, is not a sign that it's over, right? I mean, that's kind of plain and simple, right? Is the downside over? Are we ready to turn around and see the next market rally? A lot of this we think is because we've got some headwinds, some of them being obviously the high level of unemployment. We're starting to see some discussions about layoffs. Your mom's starting to see a lot of couponing starting to happen, so that's a good indicator on things, maybe from places that she said she's really never seen before. That may be a sign of a little bit of a slowdown, but we know the Federal Reserve, they've told us very specifically that their core concern right now is getting the rate of inflation back to the 2% level, and unfortunately, we're not real close.
Not yet. I think that we've said this on multiple occasions. We're really sitting at an inflection point. Either we're, going to see some softening of economic conditions, which means the market may be now looking past what's going on Main Street, or, they haven't, what they like to say, priced in those concerns yet, and we may see a further breakdown from where we are now.
So I would say for our listeners, and obviously we're giving advice to clients at this point, a couple of things to think about. Number one is cash is king. In times of uncertainty, there isn't any reason not to retain cash. But at the same time, I think it's real important that if you are retaining cash assets, that you're looking at searching out for high yields. Unfortunately, the financial institutions holding your money generally aren't going to say, hey, great new rate, we'll just pay you more money while it's sitting 0.1%. So doing a little bit of search there, I think, is extremely important, and we've been talking to clients about that this week, looking for places to find higher yields while hopefully being able to preserve that $1 value of those money market funds. So that's an important thing. The second thing certainly would be staying invested. If you're not retired today, you're making contributions to your retirement accounts. You got to continue to do that because we know there's a power to dollar cost averaging.
Absolutely. Also, if you happen to be someone that's currently contributing, you may have a longer time horizon, which means you'll have the from here, you'll see an appreciation of those shares that you bought at lower prices, during pullbacks.
Yes, and one thing that, and maybe the most important thing for folks to consider here is that, and I've been trying to use the analogy of a bad movie. Well, it's just true. I mean, you go into the movie theater, you have high expectations, you're hoping you're going to be entertained for a couple of minutes and, for a couple of hours in most cases now, and you go in and you're sitting in the movie and you're going, oh my God, what did I get myself into? This is a downer. You may be taking a look at if you happen to go with someone else, your companion, going, you ready to leave this theater or what? And they're just kind of sitting there and staring at the screen and stuck for a couple hours. So the truth is that markets work the same way. Nobody's running for the doors or wanting to run for the doors when the markets are on the climb. At the same time, when markets are in decline, as we're seeing right now, there isn't a reason to run at the doors, but there certainly isn't a reason not to consider some safety. So this movie will end. It seems like it's been longer than it should be. We're now into, was it, babe, 12 and a half, almost 13 months now since we saw the highs in January of last year.
It feels like longer than that, but I think that's about right.
So this will end. We'll get back to the credits, and hopefully the next movie will be much better. So what we're really doing is we're waiting to see an inflection point. about making the turnaround. And frankly, patience is a virtue, but it's a tough one, man. It is just tough as we're working our way through these. So like anything else, as we talked about before, this time of the year, the beginning of the year after the first year, is certainly a time to look at your asset allocation. Make sure that you really are in line with your risk tolerance. And in many cases, we know that the market has assisted you in reducing the equity side of your portfolio and probably also the fixed income side. But getting this in line with your risk tolerance is extremely important. And what I would also suggest, even though it isn't in the literature, is that risk tolerance is fluid. In good markets, we find that our clients tend to become and want to be a little bit more aggressive with their investing. And at the same time, in declining markets, they want to become a little bit more defensive. Nothing wrong with that in terms of your thought process, but in general, trying to keep a level head is the most important thing to do. We have time. If you needed money today, it should be sitting already in cash, like for many of our clients, those that have income needs or specific capital needs. Excuse me. We have the cash already sitting around and ready to go and really there for the next 6 to 12 months. So do your thing.
I think that's a really important point, especially if we're talking about fluidity of risk tolerance. You may be able to balance that out a little bit with planning, which is, working with your financial advisor, discussing what your upcoming plans and needs are for the next 1 to 5 years. And if you know you've already got a game plan in place to meet those financial needs, that will take a little of the anxiety out of the fact that your portfolio doesn't look the same as it did a year ago.
Yes, and as we always say, it's important to talk to your advisor. The question is, are you having these discussions now? If not, why aren't you? It's a good one. So certainly something to ponder. I know that, honey, our schedules are starting to get very busy. It's the beginning of the year. People are thinking about, hey, is it time? Is this going to be the year that I'm going to retire? And can I do so? And frankly, can I stay retired for the rest of my life? And so those are good ones. And I thought that while we're waiting for your phone calls here at 314-931-5877 or 84126 from the text line, let's talk a little bit about a coaching session that we recently had with John and Sarah. What do you think?
Take it away.
Okay. Well, John is he's 66, and he's been a lifelong sales rep for a very large private company here in St. Louis. He's accumulated about $1.75 million in his retirement account, in his 401k, which is great. His wife, Sarah, is 64, just a couple of years younger, and she worked briefly as a nurse for about 10 years. And then became a stay-home mom while the kids were going through school. Not unusual. She has an IRA of about $65,000, and she and John have been very, very good at putting money into a Roth IRA for her and him, and they've accumulated about $85,000 of Roth IRA assets. They also have about $45,000 in savings at a local credit union. They think of that as their vault. So in total, they've got about $1.8 million in pre-tax savings and about $85,000 in tax-free savings. The reason we bring these folks up is not that they're not just typical folks, but everyone that we're dealing with, they really have 5 different game plans that we're creating for them simultaneously. Under what we call our retirement game plan.
Right, and the first... go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, honey, you can certainly start off the example, but I was going to say briefly, the 5 are retirement cash flow planning, income planning, Social Security planning. We're also looking at long-term care planning for health care, should they become chronically ill. Estate planning, which is passing assets on to the people they love. And then finally, and maybe one of the big deals is healthcare planning, which is making that transition from company-sponsored health plans to Medicare. So take us away.
Right, and we really think your overall game plan starts with your cash flow game plan. So when we sat down with John and Sarah, we determined that they need about $6,000 a month after tax because they no longer have a mortgage, which is incredible. So we know we have to gross that back up for taxes because although they have some tax-free savings available to them, the majority of their assets are held inside of John's 401k, which is going to be taxable upon distributions. So they need about $7,200 of pre-tax cash flow every month. John is going to receive about $2,900 in Social Security, and Sarah will receive about $1,450. She's going to take the spousal benefit from John when she reaches her normal retirement age.
And I think that's a real important point. Sarah is eligible for up to 50% of John's benefit. Thank you. But she won't receive that full 50% spousal benefit until she actually reaches her normal retirement age, which in her case is at 67.
Right. So with John's Social Security and with Sarah's Social Security benefit, they're still going to be short about $2,850 a month of their income goal.
And, in looking at them, we know that they have certain priorities. The first one is a steady income stream for them, one that they can depend on, they can count on. Also, we're looking at the survivor income needs after the first death, not only the income that they have together, but what happens when one of them passes away. And we know that in their case, because neither of them have a pension, we're really looking at one of them losing the other's Social Security income benefit. And then the third was passing assets on to their 3 children and their 4 grandchildren. So that's kind of the backdrop that we have. And, babe, let's go through the math on this because for us, the formula that we use is one that we use with all clients. It's one that we think seems to make sense, but it helps us determine how much capital, answering that question really, how much capital is required to create a reasonable income flow, one that they hopefully can count on, that'll be there for as long as they're around.
That's right. So we mentioned that they're going to be short about $2,850 because they'll have some fixed income protection from Social Security that'll be coming in every month when they reach their normal retirement age. So $2,850 a month for 12 months is about $34,200 a year. If we consider a prudent rate of withdrawal, which is about 4%, we know that to generate $34,200 a year, we'll need about $855,000 of capital.
And, what's neat here is that they have more than sufficient capital, milk money as we like to call it, to meet their needs. They have They have $1.78 million. They only need $855 to fund that milk money. And they also have enough income for the survivor after the death of the first spouse. So one consideration that we also had, and they were asking, is do we save the Roth IRA assets for estate planning purposes, which is passing on to the next generation tax-free, or for capital expenditures? And I think this is certainly a curious question. There isn't any one answer to it, and most likely we probably ought to give it to them after our first break, right?
I think that's a great idea. So we'll be right back after these messages.
A sturdy foundation is one of the most important parts of your home or building. So when you start to notice any type of problem with your foundation, it's extremely important to have Permajack of St. Louis evaluate your situation. Permajack of St. Louis has the most experience of any company in the U.S. using a hydraulically driven steel piering system to support settling foundations. It's the system Permajack developed and patented nearly 50 years ago, and the system the other guys have attempted to copy. Permajack Jack of St. Louis keeps up to date on all developments in the foundation repair field, and we rely exclusively on the highest quality American-made products. Many repairs are backed with a transferable life of structure warranty. The hometown Permajack team has repaired literally tens of thousands of foundations in the St. Louis area. For your free inspection, system design, and estimate, visit Permajack of STLewis.com. That's Permajack of STLewis.com. Permajack, solid as rock.
This is Jeff Lapidus, the retirement coach. Wouldn't it be great to have a game plan, a real strategy, so that no matter what was going on in the stock market, the economy, or the world, that you could be confident about your retirement? Wouldn't that be great? If you're within 5 years of retirement, call me today at 314-863-0008. That's 314-863-0008. Or send me an email, jeff@jblfinancial.com, to arrange your free coaching session. Let's get started on your retirement game plan today.
Let's talk about smart choices for your money. It's Straight Talking Retirement on the Big 550 KTRS. Here are your retirement coaches, Jeff and Aaron Lapidus.
Well, we're back with some more Straight Talk on Retirement here on the Big 550 KTRS. It's 9:26. Thanks for joining us. We've got 2 hours for your listening pleasure today. Before the break, we were talking a little bit about John and Sarah, typical rock stars. And why do we say that? Well, we know number one is they don't have a mortgage. Less basically ties on their cash flow. Number two is we determined, and maybe most importantly to begin with, what were their cash flow needs, their income needs during retirement. Once they told us what their spending was, we increased it by 20%, as we always do, to create that pre-tax income flow. We then looked at their sources, and in their particular case, their only sources of income, fixed income sources, were Social Security benefits. After netting those benefits out, coming up with a net number, in their particular case, we knew that we needed to replace, at the time they were both receiving their Social Security benefits, about $30,000 a year, $34,000 a year. Based on a proven rate of withdrawal, we needed to have capital of about $855,000 for them. They have $1.8 million in retirement assets, and a part of that of which $85,000 is Roth. So the answer is, whee! They're rock stars from a cash flow point of view. And so where we left our conversation off was, and certainly is, what is an efficient way and an effective way for us to use these Roth assets? Are we going to use them for consumption purposes, for income purposes? Are we going to hold them off for estate planning purposes? And everybody's a little different, right, babe?
Absolutely, and I would say this is a really important topic to discuss because those Roth assets can be used in a couple of ways. You know, we can use them to help moderate their tax bracket if they have excessive income needs above and beyond that $7,200 a month, because we know the majority of that is going to be taxable to them, which means, you know, they're right at that 12% tax bracket with about $86,000 of income, of taxable income per year. So those Roth assets could be of value if a new car purchase comes up that they would prefer not to finance, a large trip comes up where they would like to take a larger amount out of their retirement accounts to finance that. We can help them keep their tax bracket consistent throughout retirement, potentially.
Yes, and naturally it's important to be as tax efficient as you can over the long haul. But, you know, this Roth IRA assets, they're gold for them. And the gold being is that they're another cash, as we know of, to access capital, as Aaron was saying, without a taxable event. And then secondarily, they also could be used, if desired, as an inheritance for children, their 3 children, their 4 grandchildren, on an income tax-free basis. So we love when folks have Roth assets, and when they do, they're again another. We tend to be careful with them, right? And I don't want to say, but they tend to be more of a special use asset in many cases versus an income asset.
Right, because the ultimate goal is not to pay zero taxes, because that's almost impossible over a long period of time. The hope is that we can maintain a consistent tax rate so we're prepared over the long haul to maintain your capital and know what those upcoming expenses will be, because taxes are something that we always have to factor in.
Yes, and once we've decided, as we have in this particular case, that they're needing about $2,850 per month, the question then came up, and we presented to them, is would they feel more secure if we were to create a joint survivor pension plan for them, because they don't have one, to fit a portion of their cash flow needs? And if so, how much of that income stream do we want to be reasonably safe and secure from risk? And that's a very important consideration for clients. And we see this not only with folks that don't have pension plans, but also even some that do. Locking down an income stream, having that predictable cash flow every month, is certainly something that the more you have, we find, the happier you are in retirement, because it takes some of that stress away from decision making. Wouldn't you agree, babe?
Absolutely, and I think working the equation the way that we have, which is how much is our income need, what is the deficit of our other fixed income assets, and then determining how much of that deficit do we want to make secure, really sizes a potential joint and survivor personal pension to fit your needs versus just throwing capital at something.
And the other thing that you probably, if you're listening, you may be thinking, is we didn't have any discussion about what their pre-tax income was, because in reality, it isn't. All we're really looking to do here is to replace the cash flow that they're consuming. We know that with most folks, I mean, everybody that's working, there are a lot of things that come out of your wages that don't necessarily have to do so during retirement. One of them, and maybe the biggest one, is Social Security Medicare, where you're paying 7.55% of your income is being taken off of the top to pay for Social Security as well as for Medicare. And that doesn't happen in retirement income, because these assets are not wages. They're really distributions from plans. And also there can be bunches of other things. In some cases, there's medical premiums. Maybe there's pre-tax savings. Maybe there's ancillary products, as we call them, like disability insurance premiums, cancer premiums, whatever it would be. So it isn't what you earn, it's what you spend.
And we can absolutely tell from John and Sarah that they have lived well within their means during their working careers, because they were able to accumulate quite a bit in pre-tax and even a bit in after-tax savings. So we know that if we fund to what they are currently spending, like many of our other clients, they're never going to come back and ask for a raise, because we've maintained the lifestyle that they've created for themselves post-retirement that they created pre-retirement.
So I guess at the end of the day, we like to say, forget the calculators, because the truth of the matter is that whether it's inflation, whether it's taxes, etc., none of these expenses, if you want to call them, I guess your income, are fixed. Inflation, as you know, it goes up and down. We literally were in a no inflation environment for 4 or 5 years, and now we're obviously in a high inflation environment, which eventually we hope will abet itself, and that'll be gone. And taxes, they're political football. You know, federal income taxes are. Most times, one party wants to raise them as a way to increase more revenue for the government. The other party wants to reduce them as a way to, they believe, stimulate further taxes by folks having their money. That's another discussion for another day. But in either case,
well, you know, if you're listening and you want to try and recreate this math for yourself, I think there are a couple of pretty easy ways that you might be able to calculate it. The first and easiest way is just take your net take-home pay subtract out your Social Security benefits or whatever fixed income you are certain that you'll be able to rely on in the future. For example, if you happen to be someone that has access to a pension, if you're someone that has created a stable of rental income and you're confident in that cash flow, or you've created a positive cash flow environment for those rentals that you have, subtract those numbers, and then you'll come to whatever deficit you have, just like John and Sarah had about $2,850 of deficit. I always find that's the simplest way to calculate what your income needs will be in retirement. It's also relatively conservative because we know most people do have savings over the course of the year above and beyond what they automatically take out for retirement plan benefits. For example, John and Sarah clearly had some excess capital available to make those Roth contributions on Sarah's behalf.
And if you aren't gathering this is fun, especially for us. I mean, it's like every new client or prospective client that walks in, it's like a new jigsaw puzzle. Let's see what the pieces are. We know eventually what the picture should be looking like, which is two smiling faces. And the question becomes, how do we get there? What are you bringing to the table? Where are the holes? Because at the end of the day, retirement income planning is trying to figure out how much income do we need to replace from our wages to maintain the lifestyle that we have. And it's great because, frankly, taxes are an issue, but no one ever pays more taxes in retirement. At least we haven't found folks that are paying more taxes in retirement than when they were working. We also know that savings element, that really important element that helped get them there, isn't necessarily crucial during retirement because now we're in a distribution phase. So that's our algebra problem. It seems to work, and the nice thing, something Aaron hasn't mentioned yet, but something that we know and we incorporate into our thinking is that, there is a cost of going to work. It's not a direct cost. I mean, we're not talking about, let's measure how much gas we're spending or how much did we spend it. How much are we giving for each year for buying Girl Scout cookies from the kids at work, or, what are we spending for lunches? But there's just a cost of going to work. And when that also gets folded back into the equation, what happens is we find that really becomes the inflation hedge for most folks for their income. And so, go ahead, babe.
I was going to say, not only do we hedge against inflation in that way, but also, we mentioned we grossed up taxes by 20% when really we're going to see John and Sarah most likely consistently in the 12 to 15% tax bracket, which means we're going to build a little bit more of an inflation hedge into your cash flow game plan that way.
Well, that's great. And again, that's kind of the game plan number one, which is answering the question, do we have sufficient capital to create the income stream that we need? And we didn't really talk too much about this, and we won't this morning, but, with John and Sarah, John, he's retiring, and again, we said he's 66, but Sarah is 64. And we know that Sarah won't be electing her Social Security benefits most likely until she reaches 67, which is her normal retirement age. So that $28.50 a month is actually going to really be $43.50 a month for 3 years. And then when that faucet then turns on for her Social Security, we can then reduce the income flow that they need.
And really,
many folks.
I would say, just to quantify that, is, over the course of that 3-year period, we're going to need to provide an extra $52,000 of capital to replace Social Security until Sarah gets there.
Yes, and so if we add that to the capital base and really think of that kind of as milk money, that $850, another $52 takes us over $900,000. So that means they still have an additional, in their particular case, another $800,000 still available for long-term capital growth, income needs, whatever it might be. So that's kind of cool. Again, our phone lines are open. We'd love to hear from you, 314-931-5877 or 84126 from the text line.
And speaking of our text line, we have our first text of the day. And our texter writes, I recently switched my 401k investments from stocks, bonds, mutual funds to 100% CDs earning about 4% guaranteed interest. I got tired of my 401k losing money. Do you think I made the right decision? Thank you, Matt.
Babe,
You're pondering over there?
No, I was thinking. We certainly both have some. Was this a bad idea? It sounds like for you, Matt, the answer was no. It wasn't a bad idea. If you smell the smoke and you hear the whistle, for some folks, there's a need to run off the tracks, and it's not a bad thing. Certainly we don't know when you did this, but if you did this before, within the last 12 months, it hasn't been necessarily such a bad idea. We certainly have cautioned, and we've made changes in our clients' asset allocation where we've pulled back on their equity positions as well. But the problem that you have is, or as I like to say, it's easy to get out, but it's hard to get back in. You know, since you made this decision, what is going to be, number one, I don't know how long you took out these CDs, but if you decide you want to get back into the market, what are going to be the fees involved in the surrender of those annuities or part of them?
The CDs.
What's the cost? What's the cost interest cost the bank's going to charge you if you're breaking some of them early? Are they laddered so that they're maturing at different times? And, you know, at the end of the day, we don't know when the catalyst is going to show up to make this market turn. But when it does, at least having some cash, some money invested, I think it's better. Babe, what are your feelings on the matter?
Well, I would say that this is a question that quite a few of our clients that are still employed making contributions to their 401ks have asked. And I would say that, you know, a lot of them made the decision that they were going to attempt, you know, some extra preservation on the assets they had already accumulated. So moving them into safer, into what they would consider safer options, or even moving them into a stable value or cash fund if they're available in their 401ks, but then continuing their ongoing contributions to their original allocation. So not only are you taking advantage of some dollar cost averaging, like we talked about at the beginning of the show, but you've also created some protection for yourself for the assets that you've already accumulated. So it never has to be all or nothing. I think it's something that we talk about frequently. You know, it never has to be pay everything off at one time, save nothing. It could be a little bit of both. In this particular case, it doesn't have to be everything goes into the fixed account. It can be preserving a part of your assets in the fixed account and then still taking advantage of the opportunity that, you know, a down market is providing.
Matt, I would tell you to listen to her. She gives very good advice, honey. I like that. It was very well-rounded. Well, that's great. I was going to suggest here, we've got about 17 minutes left in the hour. Should we take our second break?
Well, I think we should take our second break of the hour, and we have completely forgotten to mention that Frank will be joining us at the very top of the next hour.
Fabulous Frank will be with us?
Fabulous Frank will be with us to discuss Medicare. So if you have questions, get them queued up because the man will be here in just a matter of moments.
So, again, our numbers are here, 314-931-5877 if you'd like to call in, or 84126 from the text line. Don't touch that dial. The three of us will be right back after these messages.
Thank goodness we all made it through the holiday season, but we were busy, so busy we couldn't take advantage of Renewal by Andersen and their pricing for last year. Well, you're in luck, because Renewal by Andersen has extended 2022 pricing into 2023. This month and this month only. Buy one Renewal by Andersen window or patio door and get the second one for half off. and you want something sweeter, Renewal has zero interest, zero payments for 18 months. You know how cold it was? Did you see the frost on the windows? Did you see your energy bills go through the roof? Well, guess what? Renewal by Andersen is energy-efficient windows, and you get the energy savings, not to mention buy one and get the second one at half off from Renewal by Andersen. Fibrix windows, they're 2 times stronger than vinyl, and they come in 9 exterior colors. 1877 Windows, that's 1877 Windows. Renewal by Andersen, RBASTL.com. Get 2022 pricing in 2023, RBASTL.com.
It's the most wonderful time of the year, football playoffs. And whether your game is college or pro, watch the next big match with a Dogtown Pizza. Root for my favorite, pepperoni and peppercini, or Heidi's favorite, the veggie. Or why not have both while you root for your favorite team? With over 11 different varieties, you can have a different pizza every week and stock up for that big game at the end. It's the most wonderful time of the year, and I'm rooting for Dogtown Pizza.
We would like to welcome you to the great big small town of Belleville, Illinois. Whether you're looking to enjoy the ambiance of our downtown area, complete with shops, restaurants, and entertainment venues to enjoy, or if you're wanting to find the perfect place to raise your family, Belleville is definitely the place you want to be. For more information about our incredible city, please visit Belleville.net to experience all the reasons why you should call Belleville, Illinois home too. Brought to you in part by the Illinois Office of Tourism and Illinois South Tourism.
This is Erin Lapidus, the retirement coach. Wouldn't it be great to have a game plan, a real strategy, so that no matter what was going on in the stock market, the economy, or the world, you could be confident about your retirement? Wouldn't that be great? If you're within 5 years of retirement, call me today at 314-863-0008. That's 314-863-0008. Or send me an email at aaron@jblfinancial.com to arrange your free coaching session. Let's get started on your retirement game plan today.
Let's talk about smart choices for your money. It's Straight Talking Retirement on the Big 550 KTRS. Here are your retirement coaches, Jeff and Aaron Lapidus.
Oh, that's right. We're back here on the Big 550 KTRS. It's 9:47 and a half. Got about 12 minutes left in our show. We'd love to hear from you. Our phone lines are open, 314-931-5877 or 84126 on the KTRS Aaron-controlled, currently, text line. We were just having a conversation the last couple of segments about Bob and Sarah. We'd helped them, John and Sarah, thank you.
Bob must be her boyfriend. Pool
there you
boy
go.
Or something.
Exactly. And so we basically helped them determine what their income deficit was after Social Security benefits, which was a couple $1,000s a month. We determined that they were rock stars because they had more capital than the cash flow they needed. And one of the questions that came up was, and this is something that John asked very specifically, said, Jeff and Aaron, we hear a lot about annuities. Many of our friends have been approached by it. And, annuities often get a bad rap because they are complex products. But can this be a useful tool for us in our portfolio?
Absolutely.
And naturally, we brought Rob into the conversation because at the end of the day, Rob, who do you think might benefit the most from owning an annuity?
Someone that has an income need. I think a large degree of the bad rap that these products get is that they're sold to people who don't have a need for them, or you're trying to fit the square peg into the round hole. And when people bring us these things and, we look at them, we say they're great, but if there was no need for them, like, how do we unwind it? How do we get you out of it? So now we're playing that game rather than using the product the way it's intended to be used. And I think that's where a lot of the bad rap reputation comes from.
Well, let's go through an example here, because in our case with John and Sarah, we determined that they needed about $2,850 a month of income. We queried them in terms of how much of that income they'd like to see locked down, as we like to think, and really not subject to risk. And they told us that they felt that about $1,000 a month would be appropriate for them. So, it's important to have a discussion with them about this. And as we did, they did have some questions.
Yes, they did. One of the main questions they wanted to know, and it's a great question, can a annuity provide income for more than one person? And the answer is absolutely these products can. It's all dependent on how you set them up when you purchase them.
And so what we're talking about here is creating a lifetime income benefit that neither John or Sarah could outlive. So that's a good side of it, but also people hear that there are generally restrictions in accessing your money once you give it to an insurance company and purchasing an annuity contract, right?
There are, and all annuities have surrender fees, and they have a limited period where the surrender fee is charged if the contract is surrendered or withdrawals over, say, a standard 10% occur. Usually, a surrender period is about 7 years. They can be longer or shorter, depending, but that's a nice ballpark figure on what you can generally expect with these contracts.
And we think this is real important, and primarily because there are new products that come out. And there are occasions where it can make sense to exchange older contracts for new ones, possibly if benefits do improve. So a longer surrender period usually means a longer holding period.
Dad, you said something many years ago during a coaching session with some clients where their primary concern was the restrictions and the liquidity issues that do arise with annuities. And the way you described it, I thought was really interesting, which is although there are some restrictions on the money that you do feed into an annuity contract, at the end of the day, because what our goal is to create an income stream with this product, you're actually creating more liquidity for yourself for the assets that are outside of the contract. So, like in your example, if I need $2,000 of income and I can lock down $1,000 of it with an annuity, in theory that means the rest of my assets don't have to work as hard because that part of it, the first half, has already been fixed. That's off the table. Exactly.
That's a really good point. And again, the way that I've always thought about this, and it isn't really written in the literature this way, but if I can segregate the income need into a small percentage or portion of my client's assets, that really frees up the rest of their assets for whatever they want to do. And in this particular case, if we're looking at, as an example, let's just say that they want $1,000 a month with just $12,000 a year. If we were using the 10% withdrawal corridor, that means that we would need $120,000 of assets with a 10% withdrawal to meet their income need. Well, guess what? That's less than 10% of their total assets.
Which is going to do 50% of the additional work that they need. So 10% is doing 50% of the rowing. How cool is that?
Well, it's very cool, and what's kind of I think even more cool here is that when this happens, when we turn on the faucet for them, what they're really able to see is that they really have more liquidity. As Aaron, you were making the point, they have more liquidity. Because instead of holding all of their assets, basically, if you want to think about it, hostage to create an income stream for them, we really segmented that into a portion. And I think that's good planning, smart planning, and that's why over the years I've always said that there is no such thing as a good deal when it comes to investing. Every asset should be invested and purchased with a particular goal or objective. What is the purpose? And with annuities, I think that one thing that is overlooked many times. And I, Rob, you've talked about this, and you've obviously talked about it this morning, is that there's really two sides to these contracts. There's the accumulation side, and there's the distribution side.
Absolutely, and there's also the how will the money be invested in the contract? So there's a couple of moving parts here, but again, having that income need, starting from a position where the contract will actually be useful to you because you have the need for it, is once that criteria has been met, then we can just go right down the line.
Yes, and again, the important question here for John and Sarah was, do we want to attempt to reduce the risk, lock down if we can, a portion of that income stream, creating a personal pension? In their case, the answer was yes. If the answer was no, it's like, that's fine. Then what happens is we move on to the next tool that we think can help them meet their objectives. So that's real important. Accumulating money, distribution phase. With an annuity, because they are subject to risk. They're not FDIC insured. What happens is they are like any other in that realm, similar to other products. What we need to do is make sure that we're investing with purpose. There is no such thing as a good deal. So I thought that was a very good beginning portion of that conversation with them and Rob. Obviously, letting them understand what some of the restrictions were in terms of liquidity within that contract was very important. At the same time, helping them, assisting them to choose what the investment base behind that contract was. Like today, as an example, I know that unlike we were 12 months ago, the fixed income rate offerings today are much better, aren't they?
Almost 5%, 4.95. And I believe, depending on the amount of money you're putting into some of these contracts, that can even go a smidgen higher than that. But there are some purchase requirements. So it's a pretty good deal.
We're really talking about if there is any, if you want to call it any break points, 100,000 or more gets a little better rate than under 100,000 with some companies. And also, in general, I think the rate you were discussing or put out there is really one that's in a 5-year contract. It may have been something that, even our texter Matt might have considered or may not have considered if he was just looking at CDs, because unlike a CD, a fixed annuity has a little bit more liquidity because during that period, as you talked about earlier, there is a withdrawal, a surrender fee withdrawal corridor each year, right?
Yes, there is. In the case of what we're talking about, it's 10% a year, and you can do that every year. So basically you can empty out about half the contract over the life of the contract. So you do have some flexibility, and that's important that people understand, again, how the product works and what you can and can't do and what it's designed to do.
Yes, and certainly understanding surrender fees, understanding interest rate guarantees with a fixed annuity is something that's real important. And we're talking to clients about this all the time, which is great. Our phone lines are open. We've got about a minute or so left in this hour. Frank will be joining us again, our Medicare maven, as we like to call him, in the next hour, 314-931-5877. Again, 314-931-5877 or 84126 from the unusually quiet text line today. What's the temperature out there, babe?
Well, I was just going to say, we had some really nice weather at the beginning of the week, and I think we all forgot here in St. Louis that it was actually winter, unfortunately. It's pretty cold
the nice part about nice weather is that you can come to our offices for a coaching session at 314-863-0008. Give us a call. We'd love to hear from you. It's fun and free at our offices in Olivet, where we've got lots of parking. And I think the best coffee in town and the best snacks that we can find.
The best snacks that we can find.
Updated treats.
Updated treats for a new year. We're going to have a little bit more fun in the office. No more granola bars. That being said, we will be right back after these messages to talk some Medicare.
Let's talk about smart choices for your money. It's Straight Talk and Retirement on the Big 550 KTRS. Here are your retirement coaches, Jeff and Aaron Lapidus.
Woohoo! It's hour number 2 here on Straight Talk and Retirement on the Big 550 KTRS. And during hour number 2, once a month or so, we have Frank Ellis, our Medicare specialist, in-house specialist, with us today to talk about some interesting subjects, and we like to call this our Smart Choices About Your Healthcare segment, sponsored by our very good friends
at Aetna and Anthem of Missouri.
Thank you so much to our sponsors. And Frank, good morning.
Good morning.
Welcome.
Nice to hear your voice.
Yeah. Well, thanks for having me. As always, I do have an interesting topic to talk about today for our Medicare segment. So if you all have any questions, feel free to text the line.
That's right, 84126 from the text line, or you are welcome to give us a call, 314-931-5877. They're starting to roll in, but let us not miss our topic because I think it's a great one today.
Excellent. So I got an interesting call on Monday morning, first thing, walked into the office, and one of our existing clients who's been with us for several years now, Linda, gave me a call. Linda told me that everything was going perfectly with her plan over the last few years. Of course, she's in a Medicare Advantage prescription drug plan, which we spend a lot of time talking about those plans. Those are the free plans that you don't pay anything for monthly, that you only pay when you have to use the plan. So Linda has enjoyed that plan for quite some time now. She hasn't had any issues on the plan. Her drug coverage is normally pretty good. Most of her prescriptions are covered, but Linda was hit with quite the surprise over the weekend when she went to the pharmacy, and her pharmacy is CVS. She got quite the surprise whenever she went to go pick up one of her medications. So Linda's on the phone, her and I, and we're discussing her plan. I told her, yes, everything still looks good, still looks like you're in the best plan right now. And she says, well, Frank, that's exactly the reason why I'm calling you. I don't know if I am in the best plan because something happened at the pharmacy, and I need you to either explain this or put me in a different plan where we can avoid this, or give me some options.
Okay.
What
happened?
So Linda went to the pharmacy. She's on a few Tier 1 medications, in which those Medicare Advantage plans, normally with your Tier 1, you don't pay any copays to pick up.
So those are your preferred generics, right?
Those are your preferred generics. So she's also on a Tier 3 medication, and normally on those Tier 3 medications, you have to pay a $47 copay. So her specific medication is a very popular medication right now, and it's in hot demand everywhere. And that medication is Trulicity.
So that's one of those diabetic medications, correct?
That's correct. So it's not an insulin, but they do consider it a diabetic medication. It has a lot of good benefits with it when it comes to weight loss, when it comes to high blood pressure. So a lot of people actually take this that don't have diabetes.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
So her pharmacist let her know that her Trulicity order got canceled. And when we were on the phone discussing this, she said, my pharmacist told me that the Trulicity is on back order.
Okay.
Okay. So it's not the same thing as a shortage. If your pharmacist tells you that there's a shortage in medication, normally most of the time you can talk to your pharmacist and they can have that medication for you if it's a shortage within 24 to 48 hours. Or you can go to, let's say your preferred pharmacy is CVS. Let's say you wanted to go in-network to a different pharmacy like Walgreens or something, and they may have it there. So a shortage is not the same thing as a back order, and we'll get a little bit deeper into that, but let's continue on with Linda.
Okay.
So her pharmacist tell her that it's on back order, so they had to cancel the order. Now, I couldn't imagine how Linda felt when she truly does take the medication for diabetes. She does not take it for, like a weight loss or to manage her blood pressure. Mm-hmm. So I can't imagine how confused she was, maybe how upset she might have been that she could not get her medication. So I told Linda, once we were on the phone and we started discussing this, what were some of the reasons why and how a medication can become back ordered.
Okay.
So one of the main reasons for a back order is actually manufacturer delays.
So this is not emanating from her plan that you both selected together. This is unfortunately something even outside of the plan's control.
That's right. This has nothing to do with her being on an Aetna plan. Let's say she's on a plan with AARP United Healthcare, mm-hmm. and she were to go to Walgreens to try to pick up the Trulicity. She would have had the exact same issue, and she would have ran into the exact same problem because it's a manufacturer issue and not an insurance issue.
Got you. So what is Linda to do?
So Linda has a few different options whenever it comes to something being on back order. Okay. Now, the reason that Trulicity, as well as Ozempic, is on back order right now, it's due to the increase of demand of the medication.
Right.
When you have a medication that works and works well, you're going to get a lot of demand on it. So the manufacturers have not been able to keep up with that demand yet.
Okay.
So Linda has a few different options whenever it comes to that. The first option for Linda that we went over was she can call other pharmacies, like we mentioned, Walgreens, Mercy Pharmacy, a lot of different private pharmacies around the area, Kroger, Costco. She can call these other pharmacies to see if they have it in stock, if they are in network, if they are in her plan's network. So what we know from Medicare Advantage prescription drug plans is that they all have their preferred pharmacies.
Which means you'll get a slightly better price if you use the preferred pharmacy than just an in-network pharmacy.
That's correct. So you can use a preferred pharmacy or you can use an in-network pharmacy.
Mm-hmm.
It's the pharmacies that are truly out of network, and you can always call me to find out if a pharmacy is in-network or out of network. But if a pharmacy is truly out of network, you want to stay away from those pharmacies because you're going to be paying maximum dollars for your medication
full
costs.
Price for it. There's no insurance protection.
Exactly. You'll be paying full price for those medications. So a medication that she may pay $47 copay for, she may pay $200, $300 for at an out-of-network pharmacy. So it's always best to take advantage of your preferred pharmacies and your in-network pharmacies.
Okay.
So Linda's options, okay, let's call around. Okay, and of course, I helped her with this. We call around. We try to find some other pharmacies that have it in stock. And one other point that I do want to make before we get into this is that I keep saying she's on a Medicare Advantage plan,
mm-hmm.
okay? Even if she were on a traditional Medicare plan and had a standalone Part D plan.
This could have happened, too.
The same situation would have happened. Because, again, it's a manufacturer. It's not a plan-specific issue. It's a manufacturer issue.
Got you.
So we call around to a few in-network pharmacies, and, of course, unfortunately, they do not have the medication in stock. Okay, so now we're left with, do we need to look at out-of-network pharmacies and try to find anyone that has this medication in stock, in-network. So her option would be, if she does use an out-of-network pharmacist, okay, she can probably more than likely get reimbursed on the back end through the insurance company.
So there are some provisions where if it's unavailable to you through in-network preferred pharmacies, that the insurance company is going to work with you and that I found it, I can get it, you're going to have to pay full price for it up front and then submit the bill to be processed again under a certain claim so you can get it for the $47.
Exactly. That's correct. She's going to pay up front if she finds it in an out-of-network pharmacy. She'll pay the full price up front, and then we'll fill out the reimbursement form and get reimbursed on the back end.
What if, unfortunately, maybe for Linda, that's not an option?
So if that's not an option, okay, The second option, okay, because that would be option number one, in my opinion, is to try to find the medication somewhere.
Right, because we don't want to change what Linda and her doctor have already been doing.
That's
for
correct.
Years.
We don't want to change what works. That's right. So, unfortunately, that would lead us into the second option.
Which is to change what works.
Exactly. To change what works. So, the second option would just be for Linda to find out what the alternatives are for Trulicity and Ozempic, because we know that both of those are in back order. So if she were to go to her doctor and say, hey, there's this other medication named Ozempic, she would run into the same problem.
So she can go to her physician armed with information, but really that falls outside of what we can recommend to her. It's time for her to go back to her physician to see if there's another pharmaceutical alternative for her prescription.
Exactly. So the alternatives that she has, and of course, this is a conversation where, you know, Linda would have with her doctor, and her doctor would say, yes, we can try this medication for a few months until Trulicity is back in stock. So she had a couple of different options. Bipuron was one of the options, and Victoza was the other option. And they do the same thing that the Trulicity and the Ozempic do. But, again, her doctor would be the one that would have to
make that recommendation.
Exactly.
Okay. So that means Linda's got a little bit of legwork to do, unfortunately, but there are alternatives, and the insurance companies, regardless of if you're with Medicare Advantage or you're with a standalone prescription drug plan, are going to work with you because, again, this is a manufacturer error issue. It's also, you know, Linda's not going out of network intentionally. It's because it's out of necessity, which is kind of similar to if you need the ER under a Medicare Advantage plan, they're all in network for you because it's a necessity, not a choice.
That's correct.
All right.
You know, I was going to say here, I think this is interesting to me because this is a medication that I happen to take. And I actually switched from another medication to go to Trulicity because it's a once-a-day deal. And the previous medication I was taking was 2 times a day, and unfortunately my brain only works once a day when it comes to taking medicine. So it's once in the morning, et cetera. And that's, you know, unfortunately folks have these choices, and one thing I would certainly remind everybody about, and it's not really good news, but it's just the truth, which is if you find, like in Linda's case, I'm sure that what she did was, or hopeful that what she did, was that she didn't take that prescription out of the pharmacy. Because once you take the script out of the pharmacy, you can't return it. That isn't how prescription drugs work. So if you find yourself in this situation, what you want to do is you want to certainly, if you're one of our clients, give Frank a call. Have this discussion. Obviously, if it's necessary, have a discussion with your physician before you take that drug out so that you don't have to go through is the insurance company going to reimburse me deal, right?
That's a good point. And I think it's just, you know, it's really great to have Frank available because, you know, just like you mentioned at the beginning, this probably really upsetting for someone to not be able to pick up a medication that they have been taking for years. So to have a little bit of backup with an explanation as to what happened and here are a few steps to move forward probably creates a lot more security for people to know that they've got someone aside from the insurance company that's just going to unfortunately say, well, here are your choices. You got to go deal with it yourself.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Well, not only that, but I guess the other, as you can tell, is that Frank's with us every day. And, you know, every month, new people have an opportunity to enroll in Medicare. It's an option. Finding out whether it makes sense for them to do so or not at that time is important. Helping them choose the right plan that fits their needs is important. And then, obviously, as we've been talking about here, really made a good point about this, having someone to call. You know, having to sit on not having to. That's right. Someone that understands the plan, understands you, and is really truly interested in that you're just not, you know, a number on some phone line, can be extremely valuable for you. And the cool part is that there's no cost to you to do this. When you purchase your Medicare supplement through us, as over 200 of our new listeners do every single year, making us one of the largest folks that do this in the state, which is kind of fun, puts you in a good place. And, obviously having this piece of your game plan locked down with your retirement game plan doesn't get any better, right?
No, it doesn't. And, we have a text on the line of someone that is attempting to lock down their retirement budget. And the texter writes that they're 60 years old now and trying to budget for what I'll be paying for Medicare when I turn 65. How do you know?
Well, we can kind of look at the last 10 years as just like a basis of what's been happening with Medicare.
Sure.
Right now, the standard Part B is $165.90. Probably over the next 5 years, she said she was 60.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so in the next 5 years, turning 65, probably be something around like 190 is what I'd imagine.
And also, if you over budget here, then you're in the green instead of the red.
That's right. That's right. So the good thing about it is that you'll only be paying for that standard Medicare Part B. So if you're paying $190 to Medicare, that's all that you should be paying, because especially over the next 5 years, these Medicare Advantage plans are going to continue to get stronger and stronger and more competitive. So you won't be paying for those Medicare Advantage plans. And over the next 5 years or so, they are saying that Medicare Advantage plans, there's probably going to be upwards of more than 60% of people that join the Medicare Advantage plan as opposed to your traditional Medicare plans.
Right. So right now it's worked its way to about 50-50. 50% of people take those traditional supplements which have a monthly premium. If this texter were purchasing a Plan G right now, which is all premium, very little out of pocket, how much would they be paying?
Probably about $150 a month. Of course, it depends on what county and how old you are, but standard 65 here in St. Louis, about $150.
Okay, so you might say if you had already had your heart set on a supplement, that you could add another $200 a month to that $190 that we talked about, that could round out your budget. Or, if you're interested in hearing about the Medicare Advantage options, which can really help you keep those premium costs lower over a long period of time. We're just talking about the $190 from Medicare, which we're projecting could be in the next 5 years, and then looking at those Medicare Advantage plans, which only have out-of-pocket expenses that are relatively controlled over time.
Very, very competitive on their out-of-pocket. So you're not paying anything monthly for the plan. You pay as you have to use the plan. So you go to the doctor, get an MRI, you pay $100 copay. That $100 copay gets applied towards that maximum out of pocket, in which that's your protection point. That's how you're protected yourself from paying thousands of dollars in medical costs, is that maximum out of pocket.
And what's the average maximum out of pocket this year?
So on an HMO, you're looking at around $2,900, and on a PPO, you're looking at anywhere from about $4,500 to $6,500 in network.
And I'll just say from my past experience that when I started 10, 11 years ago, the average maximum out of pocket on an HMO was close to $2,500 a month, and they didn't even have PPOs 10 years ago. So we know that those maximum out of pockets are staying relatively consistent. So over time, you'll probably see slight increases, but we know that you don't hit that max every year, right?
That's correct. So the average is 1 out of every 7 years on hitting your max out of pocket. But, you're going to have years where you hit 0. You're going to have years where you hit $500. So you may spend something, but we're talking about hitting that $2,900 mark. The average is 1 out of every 7 years on that.
Got ya.
And we've got another texter on the line. It says, "Good morning, Frank.
Good morning.
I got my annual eye exam a couple of days ago and wanted to shop around for glasses to compare prices. Does Aetna force me to buy frames and lenses from in-network providers? I looked on their website and cannot find a clear answer or a list of stores I can go to. If I buy from Costco, will they reimburse me, or does Costco have to be in their network?"
Well, thank you for that question today, Texter. That is a great question. So they want to know if Costco, if they'll get reimbursed for their eyeglasses at like a Costco using a Medicare Advantage prescription drug plan. So the first thing I'll say with this is when it comes to the benefit of your glasses, this is just an allowance that the Medicare Advantage prescription drug plans give you within the plan. Okay. And to use that allowance, you do need to use in-network vendors.
Got you.
Okay. So Costco, I can tell you this right away without even looking because I've done so many of these. Costco would not be in network.
With any of the Medicare Advantage plans?
That I know of, Costco would not be in any network.
Because I think they already give discounts, right?
Very good discounts, too. I've heard from several clients that they pay less going to Costco than sometimes using that benefit.
Got you. Okay. So this is a shop-around thing, too.
Correct. So there are several in-network vendors that you can use. Since you have that Aetna plan, I know that you can go to Aetna MedicareVision.com. That's Aetna MedicareVision.com, and they'll have a list of in-network providers that you can use that $300 allowance on.
So this is not like the dental through Aetna where it's reimbursable at anywhere that you go up to the $2,000 if you have the HMO style plan. You actually have to use the eye benefit the same way you would use it if you were going to a physician, where you show them the card, they determine what's your copay based on your plan, what's your benefit in this case based on your plan, and they deduct for you at the point of sale, essentially.
That is correct. So the eye vision part works just like the hearing part. You have to use their vendors in order to get that allowance. With the dental, there is no network, so you can go to any licensed dentist in the United States. Don't go to the Caribbeans or something because you won't get your benefit. So make sure you're in the United States, licensed dentist, and you're going to get that $2,000 or $1,000 allowance.
So I think this is a great question, and it actually led really well from Linda's experience, which is it's really important to chat with a professional about what your benefits actually are, how to access them, and what your best options are. Because we just got another text that said they're obviously an Aetna member, and they said they pay less at Costco than with Aetna. So sometimes, although the insurance company offers you a benefit, maybe it's not the best deal.
Yeah, and Costco, they do a great job with their glasses, so absolutely.
Okay.
Well, I was going to say, obviously, having Frank on our staff for us is a very good deal. Can be a good deal for you as well. If you're 55 and older, you're within a couple months, right, of Medicare eligibility. Frank, what's the process that we ask folks to go through so that they can sit down and visit with you?
So you'll want to give the office the call. 314-863-0008, and you will just schedule a time to either come in office, visit me face-to-face, which is absolutely my favorite, or we can set up a Zoom or a phone call, and we will send you out, Kelly will send you out a Medicare questionnaire, and we ask that you just complete that questionnaire before the day before your appointment, so that way I can take a look at it, get everything that I need to in order for you, so I'm ready for you whenever you get there. And then once we have our appointment, we're going to go over your medications, we're going to go over your doctors, we're going to go over different scenarios for the next several years, and we're going to just put stuff side by side, take a thorough look at it, and see what direction is going to be best for you to go.
Right, and that medical questionnaire, it really does ask, what are your prescriptions, who are your physicians, where do you live? So that way Frank can really prepare to have a conversation specifically about you and what your best options are. We do have one last text question that came in, and I have heard this one a couple of times already, which is, how does the $2,000 stop work for medication, and when does it take effect? This is one of those additions to the Inflation Reduction Act that was included in that particular bill regarding Medicare and prescription drug costs, the way that Medicare can negotiate with drug manufacturers.
That's correct. So they haven't put a cap on it yet for 2023. It has been passed,
right?
But that part of the law does not take effect until I believe 2025 whenever the cap is actually going to happen. Now, a couple of different things that I'll mention about that cap. So again, it's not for 2023. So you're going to still be looking at, if you're on those tier 3 and tier 4 medications, you're still going to be looking at that donut hole sort of situation.
And also, it's my understanding that this is not a stop to the donut hole. It's only going to apply to specific medications.
That's correct. So it was a 3-portion law. The first part got passed out or is going to be rolled out this year for 2023, and I guess that's part of the negotiation process. 2024, the second part of that law.
The first part was the diabetic medications being available at $35, but you have to be on a plan that has your prescription on their formulary in order to get that benefit.
That's correct. So that means that if, you're on those diabetic medications, and if it says that the medication is not covered, that means you're going to be paying full price for that medication. If it falls under any tier of that plan, so tier 1 through tier 4, then you're going to get it for $35.
Or less.
So the third rollout of that would be the cap that you're talking about, the $2,000 cap that you're talking about. Now, from my research, from what I've been hearing, I think that number is going to continue to change.
Of course.
Because we don't know what's going to happen in the next couple of years. So just keep an open mind about that. It may not be $2,000 by the time it actually rolls out and it's applied.
And also because it's applied to specific medications, unfortunately, we don't have the data because I don't think it's been determined yet which medications are actually going to fall under that cap. It's not every single med. It's also not all of your meds combined. You have a $2,000 limit. So this is going to be a little bit confusing. So we'll keep updating as we get more information, but because they've delayed the rollout of this, it's delaying the information that's actually coming out about it. All right. Well, you know what? I think that we have a caller on the line. He's one of our favorites. His name is Sal. I could tell. So, you know what? Before we take our first break of the hour, let's talk to Sal. Good morning. Sal,
hello?
Hey there, Sal. Good morning.
Hi, how are you?
We're doing great. How are you doing?
I just a quick comment on the insulin. I got my insulin January, for the first pickup at the pharmacy. And last year when I picked it up, it was $1,000. This year I picked up it was $39.
So are you taking your sweet wife out to dinner?
Why
are we all laughing at that? I was serious.
Is that part of this rollout thing?
Yes, Sal. Yes, it is.
Well, they finally did something they said they were going to do. I can't even imagine. I was in shock. I said, you got to be making a mistake.
Sal's the only one that goes to the pharmacy and wants to pay more.
Well, I thought maybe that they were going to bill me later for it or something. I said, no, I want to pay cash. They said, no, well, that is cash, $39. I said,
that's right.
I said, well, get it. Let me get out of here.
That's right.
Before you guys change your mind, let me hit the road. But anyway,
Sal, let me ask you, what pharmacy do you use?
I use CVS.
CVS, and what plan are you on?
I don't know. I'm on what do you call it? Advantage.
Aetna?
Aetna, yes.
All right. Well, there it is. Aetna, CVS, insulin, $35. It works.
It did work. Like I said, I was in shock, so... Hey, now, is that all the time now, or is that just one-time deal, or what's going on with this thing?
That is in disbelief over the savings.
It is. Well, I am. Now I got the other stuff, the Ozempics. Now it wasn't. It's usually about $400, and it was. They charge you about $40 on that. $47, I think.
So for that insulin, it is capped for the year at $35 a month per insulin. So when you go pick it up in February, Just you'll pay the same price. You're not going to have to pay $1,000 for it in February. They're not going to bill you on the back end.
I'm going to go buy a new car. Sure.
With your insulin savings.
Yeah. Insulin savings. There we go.
Yeah, I'll go to the car dealer. I said, I'm paying you with insulin savings. So.
Make sure to show them your Aetna card.
There you go. Well, thanks a lot, guys.
Yeah, Sal, that's really nice. Ask Erin what color she likes when you buy her a new car. So.
Hey, this was all Frank's work.
Yeah, like I said, this was. I'm telling you, I've been doing this. I'm 72 years old, so I've been doing this a long time. I've never walked out of a pharmacy with my mouth hanging open because they didn't charge me enough.
That's beautiful. Well, listen, you have a great day, Sal. Thanks so much for that call, and we do appreciate, and we really obviously do appreciate that. And as you can imagine, Sal's a good shopper. I mean, and certainly he was a shock shopper too, right?
Well, you guys got me in the right plan. That's all I can say. So,
happy to hear
it. Will work. All right, you guys take it easy.
Thank you, Sal. We appreciate that.
All right.
That's great, babe. I guess we're going to take our first break of the hour. We'll make Frank hang around to see if there's any text messages or calls for him.
Let's do it.
Okay. Don't touch that dial, folks. We'll be right back with some more Straight Talk on Retirement after these messages.
They serve and protect.
When you put your badge on and put your equipment on in the morning, we're going to go into situations that are very dangerous, and we don't know how they're going to end up.
And sometimes they don't return home after their shift.
I was a widow, and how was I going to survive?
Since 1959, Backstoppers has been there to help the families of our fallen first responders.
Backstoppers showed up, and they reassured me at that moment that I had nothing to worry about.
This Thursday, the Big 550 KTRS will salute Backstoppers' tremendous work, and we're going to ask you to join us in supporting this important safety net for first responders in Missouri and Illinois.
Backstoppers make sure that you and your kids are taken care of for as long as you need them.
We thank you for supporting our fallen heroes and their families.
The KTRS Backstoppers Radiothon is presented in part by the Bartolino's family of restaurants, Overstock Outlet, Schaefer Auto Body Centers, and KTRS Cares.
Hey, it's KTRS Sports Director Brendan Weesey here to tell you that the fastest hour in sports talk radio is on the move.
I love sports. Dodgeball was the best.
Sports Sunday is back at 11 a.m.
Latest sports news off the street.
We'll give you all the information you need for a busy day in sports in one fast, concise hour.
What in the wide world of sports is going on here?
Consider us your Sunday sports page. It's Sports Sunday, back at 11 o'clock on the Big 550.
KTRS.
Now, back to Straight Talk on Retirement on the Big 550 KTRS. Here are Jeff and Erin Lapidus.
Well, we're back in our second hour of Straight Talk on Retirement. Our phone lines are open. We'd love to hear from you. Frank Ellis, our Medicare specialist, is in the house. You can call us at 314-931-5877 or 84126 from the text line. Hello.
Hello. We're still here with you. There are no texts.
There's no text. There's no calls. Well, we'll let Frank go then. What do you think?
Well, I did have one comment came in, which was my Trulicity was much lower, even though it's not insulin. So, I mean, don't you think that's probably because they may have reached the donut hole, or they were entering the donut hole sometime at the end of last year, and now it's started over again, so they're paying $47 till they won't?
Yeah, because typically it wouldn't be any lower. Typically it would increase unless you reach that catastrophic level after the donut hole. So you probably would have paid a little bit more for your medication once you were in the donut hole, and then once you hit that catastrophic coverage, you only paid 5% max for the 5% of the retail cost max for the medication.
So that's our way. Medicare every day. We now have literally thousands of our listeners that we've helped do this. We certainly can help you. If you'd like to get in touch with Frank, easy to do. You can send him an email, Franklin, like Benjamin Franklin, Franklin at jblfinancial.com, or give our office a call, 314-863-0008, or Go to our website, jblfinancial.com, hit that Contact Us, and tell us a little about yourself. And our assistant, Kelly, will be happy to, our office manager will be very happy to arrange a convenient coaching session with Frank or Aaron and I.
Well, now the texts are rolling in because they know that Frank is headed out the door.
Isn't that the way it always works?
Right? So they will.
I think that's in the past tense then, right? Frank was headed out the door.
Right. Now he's hanging out for a few more minutes. Our first text question is, any plans cover Eliquis?
Yes. So all the plans cover Eliquis, more so as a Tier 3 medication. Now, what I know about Eliquis through helping so many people out that are on it, because it is a common prescription that folks take, Eliquis is one of those ones that, you know, if you start it at the beginning of the year in January, and even if you were to start it a little bit after the end of the year, I'd say March or April is going to be that cutoff point. But if you take Eliquis starting January, February, March, you are going to hit that donut hole.
Right. So you do have coverage, which is you're going to pay a copay for a certain amount of time. Then you're going to pay a percentage. And most people, if it's just Eliquis, probably won't get out of that percentage, which is the donut hole.
That's correct.
Through the year. So just like our texture with the Trulicity, Medicare is tiered in two ways as opposed to just one. You know, Frank talks real frequently about the tiers that your medications fall on, Tier 1 through 4. But it's also tiered in terms of pricing, which is you have the deductible phase, which most people have waived. Then you have the copay phase where people are talking about, you know, Sal mentioned he paid $47 for his Trulicity when he picked it up. The texter mentioned that their Trulicity was much lower. Then when those people end up in the donut hole, the price goes up.
Goes way up. 25% of the retail cost is what they would be paying.
And then if you happen to make it out of the donut hole, you'll end up in catastrophic coverage where you drop down to
5% of the retail cost.
So this is something that Frank can help map out with you so you do not walk into the pharmacy and have a unhappy surprise, unlike Sal's happy surprise when he walked in January. Frank, based on your medications, when you fill that medical questionnaire out, Frank can actually determine for you. That's why he knows on average when you start a medication, when you'll hit the donut hole. Well, he can tell you specifically, based on your list of medications, this is what you'll pay for X number of months, then we're going to transition to another cost. And if there's a third tier for you, he'll be able to tell you that too.
That's right. And it's all about, you know, when it comes to hitting that donut hole that we talk about, it's all about the retail cost of the medication.
It's not what you pay when you go to the pharmacy, which can be a little confusing.
Right. So Eliquis is one of those ones that just has a high retail each month. I think it's upwards of $900-something a month retail for Eliquis. So when you get on a prescription like that, you can expect to hit the donut hole.
Which means that if you hit the donut hole, you might be paying upwards of $200 a month to fill your medication. All right. Well, it looks like everyone has asked all of the questions they're willing to ask on the radio, but you can always call our office, 314-863-0008, and Frank will be happy to answer those questions for you or arrange a coaching session for your Medicare planning in retirement. Thanks for being here, Frank.
Thank you. Look forward to hearing from folks.
All right. And with that, I think we're just going to take our second break of the hour, and we'll be right back to talk a little bit more about your financial retirement game plan after these messages.
Are you a former smoker? The lawyers at Teen Malone are bringing cases against Big Tobacco to hold them accountable for their wrongdoings. If you or a loved one have recently been diagnosed with a smoking-related illness, such as bladder cancer, throat cancer, lung cancer, or COPD, please call 314-800-1117 or visit teenmalone.com/smoking-lawsuit to learn more. That's 314-800-1117. There's no cost to speak with us.
We searched the globe for the world's best furniture, and what I've found is some of the best quality is made right here in the USA. With superior construction, durable fabrics, and custom comfort options, Miller Furniture is proud to bring the largest selection of American-made furniture to the St. Louis area. Whether it's Smith Brothers in Bern, Indiana, or Oakwood Industries in Memphis, Missouri, our suppliers are family-owned and operated too. You'll see a variety of styles in stock and custom order options at any of our 3 locations, including our newest showroom in Ellisville on Manchester Road.
What type of experience do you expect when choosing a real estate agent?
That's Devin, another extremely satisfied seller of Lauren Risley Realty.
When I first met with Lauren and her team, I wasn't really sure what the value of my home was. I brought a number to the table that was given to me by another realtor who had evaluated my house. I was surprised to find out that I initially undervalued my home and was very interested to learn how Lauren would get the price that she promised. She sat me down and went through the current crazy market conditions and put together a strategy to get me top dollar. Even after putting this plan into motion, she got me almost $50,000 over my asking for the house, with a ton of offers to choose from.
You know, now really is a great time to buy or sell your home with Lauren Risley Realty. Call 314-775-0684. That's 314-775-0684. Or email at hello@laurenrisleyrealty.com.
I would absolutely recommend Lauren Risley Realty to anyone, and I already have.
Lauren Risley Realty.
Now, back to Straight Talk on Retirement on the Big 550 KTRS. Here are Jeff and Aaron Lapidus.
That's right. It's 10:47 here on the Big 550 KTRS. We've got our last 13 minutes or so of the show. Our phone lines are open. We'd love to hear from you. 314-931-5877. Again, 314-931-5877 or 84126 from the text line. If we don't have any texts at this point, maybe we'll get back to our subject matter this morning, which we were talking a little bit about a coaching session we had with John and Sarah. Or we'll pull some questions from the mailbag. What are you thinking, babe?
You know, I really like John and Sarah. Why don't we do a quick review of their situation, and then we can get back into their game plans, because we really didn't get to the full gamut of planning opportunities that we have during our coaching sessions.
Okay, you want to do a quick summary for us?
John and Sarah were planning on retiring. John's 66 years old, and his wife Sarah is 64. They've accumulated about $1.8 million in retirement assets, and through our conversations with them, we determined, and we started our conversation with the first game plan, which is cash flow planning in retirement. So we first determined that they need about $6,000 a month. We need to gross that back up for taxes, because we know the majority of their assets are going to be taxable in retirement. So we gross that up by 20%. And that means that our goal for cash flow in retirement for John and Sarah is $7,200 a month pre-tax. John and Sarah are jointly going to be bringing in $2,900 and about $1,450 a month in Social Security benefits, which means that because they don't have any other fixed income sources, as some do in retirement, they're going to be at a deficit of about $2,850 a month. So,
yeah.
Oh, go ahead.
Sure, and then we determined that based on a 4% withdrawal rate, they would need to have approximately $855,000 of assets flowing at 4% to create that income. They obviously had about $1 million more than that, so woohoo!
That's right, and you know what?
We knew they were rock stars.
That's right. We've got a quick text, which I think is fitting for our topic.
Absolutely, and the texter writes, how does your company work for coaching sessions? Is there a cost to meet?
Well, we should have backed that up with John and Sarah's initial coaching session with us, and all of our meetings are never any cost to you. So you can join us for an initial coaching session. We usually have 2 or 3 before you decide if you'd like to engage us and work together. We charge 1% annually for the money that we manage, and the way we do that is by creating accounts for you with our broker-dealer and helping you manage that money over a period of time.
I guess one could say the only cost is if you don't meet. That's the only way you could pay.
That's right. We're here just like Frank from our last hour is to help you make the best choices available to you?
Yeah, that's a very good question. We don't stress that, but again, all the fees for our coaching sessions, our newsletters, you actually help us be on the show too. As a matter of fact, are all bore by the 0.25% per quarter that we charge for assets that we actively manage, and that's a good one. And so obviously that's a decision point that folks have to have is. Are we worth having on the payroll?
Right.
And
what
fortunately,
level of
many
service
folks
do you want to, or do you require in your retirement?
Yeah, and we also mentioned with John and Sarah that a portion of their assets were Roth IRA assets, and we talked a little bit about specific needs in terms of cash flow in the future, projects, issues, whether we would include these as tax-efficient income. The second, I guess the other second one, which really was intertwined with the retirement income planning, was Social Security planning.
Right, and this is everyone eventually takes their Social Security benefit. So it's not planning to take it. It's really planning when to take it. It's also making sure that your timing of taking Social Security lines up with your game plan. Because, for example, we determined that Sarah's Social Security benefit was going to be half of John's. The way we determined that was, first, John has to be taking his Social Security benefit in order for Sarah to be eligible to take what's called the spousal benefit. Secondly, Sarah needs to be her normal retirement age in order for her to actually be able to collect the full 50%. Because no matter what benefit you're electing through Social Security, it's all tied to your age. So the spousal benefit at normal retirement age is 50% of the individual that you're claiming off of. If you yourself are under normal retirement age, it's going to be discounted 8% each year from that 50%. So if you're 1 year, your benefit is really only 42% of your spouse's or ex-spouse's benefit if you happen to have been married for 10 years and are not remarried. What?
Well, you did that in one breath. I love that. It was a very good analysis. And one thing that they didn't need to consider, but many folks do, is that, John may have decided that he wanted to defer his benefit, which would create, for the purpose of having a larger survivor benefit, should he predecease Sarah. And in many cases, that's something that's considered because maybe someone has a pension that they're also losing, and that the income need is greater. Maybe it's a situation where, it could be the opposite, which is what if Sarah was actually, let's say she was a teacher, and she was subject to the windfall profits tax. Would that make sense? So a lot of different Social Security planning aspects here. The big one, and I think the most important one, comes down to, do you need the money? Would you agree, babe?
Absolutely. Or do you have do you need the money? Do you have a specific need for the money? Or have we designed a strategy to help pay down the mortgage at a faster rate? That wasn't something John and Sarah had to consider. Do we need to refill your after-tax vault of cash? That was also something John and Sarah didn't have a concern for. Or the primary concern, which is, do you need the cash flow in order to make your monthly expenses work? Which we were able to determine that even though John and Sarah wanted to retire slightly earlier than their normal retirement ages, they had enough capital available to offset those Social Security benefits until they reached their normal retirement ages, respectively.
Yes, and since John is 66 and eligible for Medicare,
or Social Security,
Social Security, he's also eligible for Medicare.
That's right, and Sarah's just a stone's throw away.
So obviously, we would direct him to Frank to assist him in finding a plan to supplement Medicare Parts A and B, using his current physicians and lowest cost drugs. But also, we then have to look at Sarah, which is Sarah would have eligibility for COBRA, assuming she was covered under John's plan. Would that COBRA period be sufficient to have her be able to directly transition at age 65 into Medicare, which it seems like at this point it would because she's 64, And if Sarah was younger, well, what are we going to do to fit that gap in the middle, right, babe?
That's right. So some people only have one transition from their employer's insurance to Medicare. That'll be John's experience. But Sarah's going to have a couple of steps. Because she's 64 and her COBRA benefits are she's eligible for 18 months worth of COBRA, she's only going to have a two-step process, which is most likely Sarah will elect the COBRA benefits available to her, ride those until Medicare eligibility, and then switch over to her Medicare benefits. But, for example, let's say Sarah was only 62 years old. We could utilize COBRA for 18 months, but then there still will be a gap between when COBRA ends and when Medicare benefits are eligible to begin. So we'll take a look at individual coverage available to her. There are some people that have access to retiree benefits through work. We can compare those to individual policies that you can purchase privately and help you make the decision as to what the best option is for you, both if it's in benefits because you're in need of medical, some health care during the next couple of years, or if it's just based on premium because at the moment you're in generally good health and we're just looking to create that protection for you so we can limit those medical expenses in the event something happens.
Right, and so once those decisions have been made, really the secondary health care decision is on long-term care planning. Do they have sufficient assets and or income flows for both the institutionalized and possibly the non-institutionalized spouse to cover those expenses? Are they medically eligible for insurance should they want to attempt to or complement that funding to come any gaps there? And then obviously look at alternatives if they don't qualify medically, right?
That's right, and what we're finding is less than 50% of people are qualifying for long-term care benefits. That's not because they aren't well. That's because the insurance company's actuaries have determined that over an entire population, if you are currently using certain, health care, or you have certain ailments, that makes you ineligible for long-term care in their opinion. However, there are alternatives to individuals that are denied long-term care. Now, unlike health insurance of the past where you had to be denied in order to see other options from an insurance company, you don't have to be denied. We can take a look at what your best options are based on your current health, based on past health, and based on what your goals are. There are always ways to get to where we want to go.
Yes, and then finally, we can't go into great detail here because we've got less than a minute left, is the estate planning, which is how do we then pass on the assets that we've developed to our children and or grandchildren in the most cost-effective, which is Uncle Sam not taking the biggest bite out of our assets. This certainly has changed rather significantly because of the Secure Act.
Secure Act 1.0.
1.0. And, there's an easy way to get to 2.0, and what you do is pick up the phone and give us a call, right? 314-863-0008. We'd love to hear from you. Have a coaching session with us if you're 55 and older, getting ready to retire within 5 years. Or send us an email, Jeff or Aaron at jblfinancial.com.
Or you can always log on to our website, jblfinancial.com. Have a great week.
The opinions voiced in this show are for general information only and are not intended to provide specific advice or recommendations for any individual. To determine which investments may be appropriate for you, consult with your attorney, accountant, and financial advisor or tax advisor prior to investing. Securities offered through LPL Financial, member FINRA SIPC. Investment advice offered through Private Advisor Group, a registered investment advisor. Private Advisor Group and JBL Financial Services, Inc. are separate entities from LPL Financial.
Be listening next week.